Yeah, all right, in the front row. I like that. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so I'm here today with an important announcement. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ryan Selkis. I'm the founder and CEO of Messari, and I'm here today to officially announce my candidacy for the U.S. That's a different presentation. No. I'm having too much fun working with folks like Edge and Node and the Graph Foundation. So I am here today to talk about open data and an exciting new partnership that we have with the Graph that I'm going to share in just a few minutes. But first, a little bit about Messari. For those of you that don't know us, we're a data and research platform, and really we've got two components of the business. We've got market intelligence, which is basically just tools, analytics, data feeds that help investment funds, infrastructure companies, TradFi, come up the learning curve with crypto and actually, learn about, support these assets and get comfortable with the complexity of this new space. And then on the other side, there's the protocols themselves. We call it our protocol services division. And we've worked with hundreds of these entities over time. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to standardize the information flows that are coming from them to their communities. And in many cases, we're almost serving like an outsourced investor relations function. So we've got market intelligence, we've got protocol services. Some people have said if you're using the X for Y comparison, it's like a Bloomberg for crypto. But when we started, we actually were going a layer more boring and uninteresting and trying to think about how could we create an Edgar for crypto, right? How could we standardize, create the equivalent of generally accepted accounting principles, quarterly filings, things that are kind of the bedrock of trust in the existing financial system. How are we going to be able to recreate that with these decentralized protocols? And from day one, we've shared a very common vision with the Graph. And I know this because in the last bear market in Berlin in the summer of 2018, I met Yaniv for the first time. And the first thing that I noticed was, this guy's way smarter than me. And then after that, I realized that we had a pretty common vision for how this industry was going to build out, and particularly on the information side, how we were going to get to open, reliable, well-structured data sets. Open, reliable, well-structured. Day one, we had a common vision around that, and I think we've been working in our own ways on open data for the past 4.5 years. But if you look at the Messari platform, we've basically done almost everything except for on-chain data, which is a little bit ironic. We've been very patient in terms of building in protocol metrics and really robust on-chain data capabilities into our platform. We'll track off-chain events, we'll track markets data, we'll track all these other kind of miscellaneous building blocks that give people a composite view of what's going on with these different assets, but we haven't really kind of pierced the veil and spun up our own infrastructure yet. And one of the reasons for that is we've been waiting for other middleware, other infrastructure like the Graph that are focused on just this on a full-time basis to really become a little bit more reliable and robust without creating upstream supplier risk for us and our users, right? You don't want to get rugged. You don't want suddenly a certain subset of your data set to all of a sudden end up behind a paywall. And I have to say that our team has been monitoring the Graph basically since day one, since I met Yaniv in Berlin, but especially over the last year, the infrastructure investments that have been made to bring these other core developers in, and some of the things that you heard this morning and that you're going to hear this afternoon really have 10x or 100x the reliability of the Graph as a protocol. And it's something that we believe that we can build on now in a very reliable way, in an open way. The last bit is well-structured, right? So basically there's been this tension between protocols like the Graph that are working to make this information publicly available and allow for anyone to build on top, and then the more private on-chain data platforms like Nansen, like Glassnode, Coinmetrics, Amber Data. These are great businesses, but they basically had to make a decision. We're incurring all of these costs to spin up these nodes. Obviously, we're going to paywall this and we're going to charge a pretty penny for it so that enterprises can actually have on-chain insights, but then there's very limited that's left to the general public. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just kind of how the industry has evolved right now. So we've had the open data vision. We really believe in the reliability of the Graph as a protocol now. How do we get to the well-structured component to complete the trifecta? And we met with the Edge and Node team and the Graph Foundation team in February this year. at ETH Denver, where we all got COVID afterwards, or at least I did, and like half my team. And I guess all of you did as well from that laughter. But we were talking about, okay, are there ways that Messari could play a role here in curating subgraphs? Because right now there's a quality control issue. Because it is an open protocol, anyone can spin up a subgraph. And that's great unless you're trying to use it. And we are a power user of these data sets as a company. They need to meet certain performance standards. They need to meet certain quality standards for us to be able to pull data and ingest it into our platform and then kind of spit it back out for our end users. So we talked about, look, we've got 500 enterprise customers, the who's who on the fund side, on the exchange side, kind of throughout the industry globally. We work with hundreds of protocols already. We're very strongly incentivized to get this right and to build subgraph infrastructure, but we just want to understand like how we can better collaborate, and we could do this in a sustainable, open way instead of just creating private subgraphs using the graph protocol. The other thing is, our work is going to be very visible because it's going to be something that people can access through our analytics tools, and in many cases, that's either free or a very low tier, $30 a month. This isn't an advertisement for Messari, but just to kind of show this is relatively accessible versus some of those other enterprise customers or enterprise services that I showed in the previous slide. And then finally, we've already managed communities at scale. We've done this with our analyst program. We've worked with well over 100 contract and volunteer analysts through our Messari hub that helped us rate our research capabilities and output, and then ultimately created a really, really strong alumni network that ultimately got placed at some of the big protocols, funds like Coinbase Ventures, Grayscale. And we thought, okay, if we already have these incentives to build for both sides of our customer base, we know that this is going to be very visible for like QA in terms of the outputs of the subgraphs, and we've already managed communities at scale on the analyst side. Could we do the same thing on the developer side? And for the past few months, it's exactly what we've done. So our team has worked relentlessly over the last 3 months to start to come up with a new schema for subgraphs on a per sector basis. So trying to batch like for like when you're talking about DEX subgraphs, if you're talking about lending protocol subgraphs, create a little bit of a more robust schema or reliable schema that other people are going to be able to build on in a predictable way, and you'll be able to have consistent quality across the different subgraphs that you see in the ecosystem. We've deployed 20 subgraphs. We've got another 25 in queue, and we've got 25 active contract subgraph developers now. So this is something that we want to incentivize at scale. And the mission that we have, and that we talked about after a couple months of iterating on this project, is we want to make subgraph scaling and then quality control of the subgraphs themselves, essentially the front end of the graph community, turn it into a first-class citizen in core development. And so the real reason I'm here today is to announce something that I'm very excited about that our team's been working on, and it's really the culmination of a 4-year relationship with the folks at EdgeNode and the broader graph community. We are at Messari going to be the first subgraph core developer, and we'll be joining the community with a $12.5 million grant over the next several years to help build out this ecosystem. So we are extremely excited about that. It says here, 200 high-quality subgraphs. We're in a bear market, so maybe it is just 200, but we obviously think that there's going to be thousands, tens of thousands of different protocols that are going to need to be indexed, and we're going to need to create high-quality subgraphs for. So this is a starting point for us. It's a starting point for this subgraph developer community that we've been curating, and we couldn't be more excited to not only build some of the first subgraphs kind of internally and with our community, but ultimately to lead some of these working groups so that our role as a core subgraph developer itself is decentralized over time, and we can really play more of a role in creating community standards so that not only we as a company, but any data company or any consumer of on-chain data is going to be able to rely on a certain threshold of quality and know that they're getting accurate consolidated metrics, for instance, from a given protocol. So we're going to have a 10-person team going to 15-person team within Messari that's working on this, and hopefully hundreds of subgraph developers that are working with our ecosystem. So this is more than anything an invitation to work with us on this. If you're in the room and you're a developer, you want to learn a little bit more about the subgraph developer program that we have. We're looking for developers to work with us. We're looking for researchers and protocol specialists to help with some of the standard setting and the schema definitions. We're looking obviously for other data aggregators that want to dog food some of these subgraphs and really kind of scale up how much of their backend infrastructure is leveraging the graph as a network and a protocol. And then, of course, we want to engage directly with the protocol teams. We already do that to a certain extent with our protocol services division, but we really want to help kind of bridge the gap between other protocols that really should be investing heavily in increasing the reliability of their subgraphs so that anyone can build on top of them. And some of this really high-quality data is not just locked behind a paywall. The most exciting thing here is, again, it's a culmination of a long relationship that we've had with multiple members of the Graph Foundation and Edge and Node team. And I think this is going to be a really exciting, positive sum development for the rest of the industry. Anything that can be built in public should and ultimately will be built in public if the incentives are well aligned within crypto. And I think the Graph community and all the different core developers that have already received, you heard this morning, $140 million worth of grants. The incentives are there to build through the bear market. We're excited for the next 5 years and invite people to join us on that journey. To sweeten the pot a little bit, we have an upgradable credential NFT that has 5 levels. They're music NFTs, they're obviously 3D art, and these can ultimately reflect how far up the leaderboard some of the subgraph developers are within our community. We are going to be incorporating this hopefully into many of our communities, whether that's on the analyst side, whether that's on the subgraph developer side in this community, but we ultimately want to be able to not only play a leading role in the subgraph developer ecosystem, but hopefully help people build credentials, even if they're just a contributor to a DAO. And this is, I think, one of the most exciting things, especially because of the music. You can tell that I picked that music that coincides with all these NFTs. But you get a cool NFT, it might be worth something someday. I'm personally very bullish on soulbound and kind of permanent on-chain credentials. So we want to make sure that folks are rewarded, even if they're anonymous. We want people to contribute and be really excited about the partnership that we have in place today. So I am way under time right now. So if people are still waiting back here, I could also take questions if there's anyone in the audience that wants to ask a question.
We're with the Cross protocol, and we desperately need a subgraph for Cross 2. It's a cross-chain bridge. The V1 did about a few hundred million. We're expecting like a few billion in volume in the next year. And we're here to try to convince somebody to do a subgraph. So
Across,
yeah.
Florent, where are you? There he is. Florent, Vincent, Messari team, just stand up real quickly. We're rolling deep this week, so they're all in the same row back here. So flag these guys down. Florent, Vincent, make sure that you find this guy after the presentation. I'm sure if there's other folks that have similar questions or concerns, make sure you try to get these guys right outside after the presentation. But we do want to get to 200, so thank you for asking that, and hopefully we can do that not only for you all, but for many other folks in this room. No one else? There. Florent, did you plant that question? I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name. He's French, if you can't tell. So, both the speaker and the designer. But we're excited, and hopefully we can get him more business because they're really slick, and it's just the tip of the iceberg for some of the things that he can do. So it's a great question. So the question was, if you're subgraph developers, how do you reach out? First of all, go to the team or email kind of anyone on our team about this. We can certainly get in touch easily. We're not only working with subgraph developers on a contract basis, But when it comes to the groups that are setting standards, like we're not going to pretend that we're the only voice in the room that's just dictating from on high how these should be structured. So there's a couple of other kind of working groups right now that we're going to be a meaningful contributor to and help catalyze and lead. For now, if for no other reason, then we just have more personnel dedicated to this today. And then over time, we'll become a smaller part of that as other big players start to build on this common infrastructure. Are we going to work on substreams? Yes, and that's one of the things that we were very excited about when we caught up in February. It was kind of the tipping point, to be honest, for our decision to really go all in on the graph. And again, I can't say enough. We're very patient as a company. It's killed me to not have on-chain data for years, but it's also allowed us to not go down any dry holes and just waste a ton of developer resources. So we've been patient in terms of waiting, and the infrastructure that's been built from some of the other core developers the last year, especially substreams included, were a big reason that we've made this hard turn and have begun to go all in on this. And thank you for the help in navigating the core developer grant process. So it goes both ways. Got 4 minutes left, so I got a couple. Can answer a couple more if there's anyone else.
What should I invest in?
What should you invest in?
Some investment advice.
My uncle, Gary Gensler, has told me time and again not to answer this question in public. But if you talk to me afterwards over a beer, I'll let you know what I'm holding.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
What are the standards that you are most excited about in the subgraph ecosystem?
The subgraph development standards. So I think it's developing a common schema. I'm not going to be able to give you the technical answer. It's going to be for our team up here. I'm just the monkey that they send on stage to say words. But the schema development that we're doing and some of the documentation on different types of assets, I think is really important. So you look at something like Uni v3, it's kind of the gold standard in subgraphs right now. A big reason that it's so popular and it's so valuable is because that is a core bit of what the Uniswap Labs teams maintain. So one of the things that we want to do is make this very, very easy for community subgraph developers to contribute, for us to maintain and upgrade them over time and make sure there's continuity for some of these subgraphs in terms of maintenance. That's been a big problem, is someone will create and then not maintain or not make a fix. And one of the ways that we think that we can do that really effectively is if we can onboard more of the protocols themselves to work with us, the subgraph, the original subgraph developer, and kind of who is playing an ongoing role in maintaining those different subgraphs. So the technical answer, if that's what you're looking for, is going to be something for these guys, but at a macro level. Go ahead.
I guess as a follow-up, it seems that the introduction of standards unlocks, I guess for lack of a better word, a much higher degree of composability.
Yes.
So the inherent ability to kind of plug, subgraphs into these standards compliant interfaces. How are you thinking about that in the context of Messari's product lineup, but also more holistically? What is the impact that you see this bringing to Web3 data?
So the question was about composability of, based on better subgraph standards, what does that mean for composability of different applications? I won't give away too much because we do have our conference coming up in September, Mainnet, New York, 21st through 23rd of September, and we're going to have a lot of product announcements around that event. Obviously, some of them are going to be in the protocol metrics side, and some that are going to be tools that we're building on substreams and kind of on these subgraphs that we're working on. But I think the short answer is this is going to create just a tremendous explosion of different types of applications, information and data applications that I think are going to make it easier for developers, going to make it obviously easier for end users and investors to navigate these different segments. And the one thing that we learned and heard repeatedly when we were kind of diligencing, should we really kind of go all in and is now the right time, is we love the graph, we love the graph, we love the graph, but navigating the subgraphs and making sure that when we actually use it as our back end, we can't even we can barely get to 1.9, much less like 3, 4, 5 nines in terms of reliability. So I think when we get to 1 9, 2 nines, and then ultimately, this becomes as reliable as a centralized information service, that's going to unlock a ton of creativity. And just our team alone has hacked away at 2 or 3 different applications that we're excited about. And again, all of that is built on an open back end that isn't necessarily going to be locked to anyone that wants to access it or build something similar. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. See you around.